This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome back to Must Watch Movies here on The Flying Cow. I, of course, am your host, The Flying Cow himself, and here with me today is my co-host, Jack Allison. Why do you always want to refer to yourself as a special guest?
Because
you're
I'm
like
a
a
special
regular
boy.
on the show.
Yeah,
Huh?
but like that's the fun of it. It's like special guest. That way, like if I just don't show up for whatever reason, like you have an out. I'm helping you.
Yeah,
If
but I wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't said you'd do it. So.
Yeah, but you know what? Like one bad tweet and I'm off the podcast. So I got to be. Oh, excuse me. One bad. What do they call them now? They call them like X's or tweets. Like what do they call like posts on X?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah,
I really don't give a shit.
I get it. I get it. But yeah, no, it's fun to be back. Thank you for having me, co-host / special guest back. I gotta once again correct you though. I'm sorry, but you've dropped my title now. Like I guess.
Oh, I know. I
episodes in a row
know.
now?
Yeah. What is it, Lord Jack Allison?
That's two-time
The
Golden Teddy winner.
I'm
Lord
Golden Teddy
Jack.
Award winner. Wait, didn't you give yourself like 3 of them the
No,
last
I gave us up
time you
2.
did one of those?
No, 3. Okay, here's my thing with like awards. Okay, 2-time is like peak sexy. 3-time, get off the stage. Like even Meryl Streep, like no, seriously.
Yeah.
Even Meryl Streep, like when she like won her 3rd like Oscar, she went up on stage. She goes, "Oh my God, not her!" And she's right. She's exactly right. So if Meryl Streep says it, it's law. And
yeah, no, it's true. I mean, honestly, not like it was ever gonna happen, but you say too, after I won my first Oscar, I'd just be like, thanks, give it to the other guy.
well, it depends.
Because it's just like, don't need another one.
Yeah, but what if the other guy's Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman?
I will specify.
Yeah. Or what if it's like Russell Crowe for Les Miserables?
Yeah, but what if it's I don't know, and this is just because it pissed me off. What if it's, freaking Anthony Hopkins?
Oh no!
Time when he should have given it back to Chadwick Boseman.
I'm sorry. In my head, I was thinking, please don't say Anthony Hopkins for the father, and you said it.
Look, I haven't seen that movie.
Oh!
That's why. There's no way.
Okay, here's the thing.
It was better than Chadwick Boseman. Besides, Chadwick Boseman had passed. For crying out loud.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I don't. It's kind of like what we were talking about last time with like Al Pacino like getting an Oscar for his career, rather than the performance like the best of his career. Like I thought that.
I'm sorry. Have you seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom? He
multiple times
phenomenal in that.
But here's the thing with that. Like I felt the exact same with you. I was surprised. I was really frustrated because he's my favorite up until that point. But then I watched The Father and I said, holy shit, I never thought I'd say this, but this, in my opinion, even above Silence of the Lambs, is the best performance of Anthony Hopkins' career. And again, I'm not looking at it as like a career Oscar. Like I was just as skeptical as you, but I saw it and I said, holy shit, no one's going to watch this movie, which is going to frustrate me. But like this is a phenomenal performance.
Look, I never said that that he didn't deserve it. I couldn't say that. I haven't seen it.
No, yeah.
What I'm saying is he didn't need it.
Well, I'm not saying. Well, I don't think anybody needs an Oscar, to be fair. But
but
I'm not gonna. Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna put that down on my list for consideration movies because like that one's. Okay. I think
I'm definitely not against. Well, honestly, I've been interested to see because I'm like, it's got to be a phenomenal performance.
It truly is, and similar to Ma Rainey, although Ma Rainey is based on a play. This one has very much of like this could be a play type of film. So yeah, that one's really good. Okay, yeah, I'm putting that down on my consideration list.
All right. Sure.
All right.
Yeah. I'm glad you've got a list. I'm like, I need to write these down. Thankfully, the three or four that we've mentioned, I do remember, but it's just like I should start an actual list.
Well, the only reason I started making a list was because after, like, I knew this would happen with this podcast. Every single episode, this is gonna be the problem. I'm gonna pick a movie when it's my turn to pick, and then as soon as we end the call, in the recording, I'm gonna think of something way better that I should have picked.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Like I'm already regretting the three that I said in the first episode. So yeah. I mean, not regretting. Like I'm still going to suggest them at some point, but like again, I just thought of three much better ones I could have picked for those categories. But you know, it's the name of the game.
But again, that was really just meant to be testing the waters, just to see
it was
what I mean, you hit all ones that I haven't seen. So you know, somehow we both named 7 movies, and neither one of us had seen any of them. Well, I mean, you'd seen the ones you suggested, and I knew the ones I'd suggest. Well, with the exception of the one that I said I hadn't seen. But yeah, I think it's you know, the fact that we just named things that the other one hadn't seen was a win.
Well, like I said, it's the core reason why we're doing this. Like I said, like it's fun to podcast, it's fun to talk movies, but honestly, like I'm doing this, like we said last time, to get a new experience and have some fun.
Have an excuse to watch new movies. Yeah, absolutely. And talk about them.
Exactly. So it's honoring the plan. And you picked a movie this time.
Well, I did. Speaking of, let's go ahead and let us bring up the film that we are talking about today, which is the film from 1996, The Stupids, which I had forgotten this when I was talking to you about it, but then it was the first thing that popped up on the screen as I watched it, and I'm like, oh, that's right. It's directed by John Landis.
I was so surprised by that. I'm like, what?
Right? Oh my God, because here's the thing. For anybody out there that's not like a film person the way that we are, John Landis, for anybody that doesn't know, is especially like a comedy film, like he has quite a track record with hit comedy films. He directed, just to name a few, Animal House, Blues Brothers, Trading Places, Three Amigos, Coming to America, An American Werewolf in London. He even directed the video for Michael Jackson's Thriller. So this is a guy that has directed some stuff, and then you throw on to that list The Stupids.
So am I right in taking from that you're not the biggest fan of this movie?
Well, here's the thing. Just like I said to you when I introduced it, is that there are parts of this movie that and part of it is that I watched it growing up.
Sure.
There are parts of this movie that I think are absolutely hilarious. I think as a whole, it doesn't work. There are definitely some things that are completely unnecessary. There are large patches of the film that I don't laugh at all. But the parts of the film where I do laugh, I just sit there and I giggle. Like there are parts of it that really get to me. Even parts that I hadn't remembered. Like there are certain jokes, and we'll talk about them, that like became like running gags with myself and my sister, myself and friends, things like that. Well, we'll talk about it, but there are things that I still like will just randomly say, mostly to myself because I know nobody else gets it, that just still to this day make me laugh. But yeah, just to kind of go over a little bit more. So the film, let's see, it's based on a series of books by John Marshall called The Stupids, which was basically a book series from like the late 70s and 80s.
I was wondering.
Yeah, there were only like 4 books. I don't really know much about the books, and I don't really care. We're not talking about the books right now. We're talking about the movie. The music was done by Christopher Stone, and I will say, I don't know if this is the only film that he's composed, or if he just for some reason doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but there is nothing on his name on Wikipedia. I don't suppose you looked him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say there are a couple of beats. Like the music in this film is interesting because what I find the most interesting, like honestly, it sounds like a lot of other films. Like there's literally a beat where I'm like, okay, that straight up feels like you kind of did like a generic version of a riff from Back to the Future. Like it does this kind of and I'm like, that felt very Back to the Future adjacent
I
just
think it was
now.
the opening theme that was very reminiscent of that. Yeah,
There's a bit
I
where
think I know what you're talking about.
they turn the car around.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. It. Yeah, I remember them being in the car.
In like the middle of the film, yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the bit. But yeah, like I said, what I find interesting is that we'll talk about it, but the characters believe that they're in a much different situation than they actually are.
Mm.
And the film is scored as if we are in their reality, not the reality that we're actually seeing. So it's very interesting because it's bringing us kind of into their delusions, their version of reality. But
Yes.
yeah, so I mean, just to kind of skate back to where you started, like I said, that to me, I think this film is one that I enjoy and I probably always will to a certain extent. I think there's large bits of it that don't work. But what were your thoughts about the film? I mean, I know you hadn't seen it before,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing it.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot, and like, yeah, like, obviously, like similar to you, I think while I had some criticisms, I did see a lot of things, even like through like a new, like a modern lens of like watching it, as a first timer. There's a lot that I did appreciate unironically about the film.
Okay.
The style in and of itself was very much reminiscent of that era in the '90s when like you were seeing all kinds of things adapted from pre-existing like classic material, like your Beverly Hillbillies, your Little Rascals, which funnily enough features an actor from the same film, The Little Rascals, in this.
Bug Hall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bug Hall, and the harking back to my own podcast, Car 54, Where Are You? There was like a lot of films, Addams Family, a lot of stuff from like
Yeah.
based on like
Brady Bunch, which honestly parts of this feel a little Brady Bunchy.
Yep, That Darn Cat was a little bit in that in there too. Yeah, this movie had a lot of semblances to that style, and again, it was a big thing. It was, it's maybe the superhero films of the '90s are equivalent. So I definitely got a lot of vibes from that. I appreciated the things I appreciated the most about it was how rapid fire it was, but in a way that didn't make it necessarily feel exhausting. I, I
Okay.
I appreciated that a lot of the jokes are about setup and payoff. Like a lot of the jokes
Sure.
that you don't see, a lot of them is like, like here's the setup, here's the payoff. But sometimes it will just be the case of, hey, all right, here's a setup, and then way later on, when you've long forgotten about it, it will bring the payoff in. And I do like to see that implemented.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue is even creatively crafted around that in a way that doesn't feel too like hokey, too shoehorned in to make a joke happen. And I did like that a lot about the film. Again, I wrote a couple examples down we could talk about later.
I've definitely got some as well.
Yeah, I think, and I think maybe what you were kind of alluding to a little bit earlier, that maybe didn't work for you now, and that for me, I think felt the same way, was some of the honestly, some of the special effects stuff, like the cat and the dog thing, was like something that probably was
honestly,
from
most of those special effects things are completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm just like
the dog, we don't need them.
Yeah.
The whole alien bit, we don't need, and it's honestly one of the worst bits in the whole film.
I agree, and I was wondering, like, not even that, but it looks cheap, like the aliens. They're just
it looks, but they're also meant to look ridiculous, that kind of outlandish look, but it doesn't, like, here's the thing, I will say there's some craft in the aliens, like the way that their eyes play actually is really cool looking.
But when you just have them in like
jumpsuits, because I don't like the characters, it doesn't matter.
Well, it does. Yeah, it doesn't really have like much of an importance to the plot. Like everything else,
Yeah.
like I would argue, like does kind of progress the story, even like with like some of the more
Sure.
contrived jokes that is fine. But yeah, that one it just seems more like, hey, we just like want to have this tacked on at the end just for fun, and it just when that clearly involved like a bigger upscale in like the budget when it came to like the special effects, which for the '90s, for now isn't great, but for the '90s probably
Right.
didn't cost like a small amount of money. So I'm like, you
Yeah.
put a lot of
Yeah.
effort and time into this for something that didn't really like have much relevance other than just like a one-off yuck yuck.
And
Um,
and and it didn't land as a joke
yeah,
either.
it's similar to the cat and the dog thing. I feel like
Yeah.
that was maybe a wink for people who are familiar with the source material that I
I was
can only
about to
guess.
say, I feel like the cat and the dog have to be part of the books.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the whole shtick with the cat and the dog is that they're smarter than the family.
yes, yes. It's almost like a Wallace and Gromit sort of thing, and I can get
Right.
that. But I just that's the
But
kind of
if
thing
that's the
where
case, then they should have been part of it more. But
yeah,
I think part of why they weren't was probably the cost effectiveness. But if that's the case, then just don't have them.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, like have like a cat and a dog. Like honestly, we saw this all the time in the '90s movies, like with like the
Yeah.
101 Dalmatians live action. Just have like the dog if they do something really dumb, then just have the dog that close up where the dog just kind of covers its face with its paw that you see in
Yeah.
every single '90s movie, and whimper, something like that. I don't
Yeah.
think that was necessary or helped anything at all. But again, that's ultimately a nitpick.
Yeah.
With the John Landis thing, I think that I'm with you. It was very surprising at first, and when based on what you kind of led me to believe about this movie going in, I
Right.
was thinking like, all right, is this like what John Hughes was to Baby's Day Out, where it's like John Hughes did this?
Sure.
But at the same time, I did appreciate something that's pretty consistent about his directing style that's consistent across the board with his films that I've seen, and
Yeah.
that's his acting and his casting choices. Because I think the
I was about
cast,
to say there are bits of this. Like I said, it surprised me when I saw it, but then as I watched it, I was like, actually, no, this does kind of feel a bit like a Landis
yeah,
film.
it's like it's not quite far enough to call completely campy, but it's like
Right.
it's in character enough, and it doesn't no one felt nothing felt phoned in a way that I
Right.
see John Landis utilizing pretty well with this cast across his films
Right.
that he's done, and that's something that I did appreciate. Again, I haven't really seen anything, if very few things, with Tom Arnold in it, and I thought he was fine in this movie
Sure.
as the lead role. He seemed
I
committed.
will say I do want to talk a bit more about Tom Arnold, but first I want to kind of give, because we've just kind of started talking about the film.
We have.
So I want to kind of give people kind of an in just in case they haven't seen it. So like we said, The Stupids, it stars Tom Arnold, Jessica Lundy, Bug Hall, Mark Metcalf, Christopher Lee, Alex
Yeah,
McKenna. Yeah. Oh yeah. And
yeah.
Bob
Put a pin
Keeshan.
in that.
But just to kind of give an overall idea of what it is about. It is about a family called the Stupids, led specifically by the father, the husband, Stanley Stupid, who basically has a conspiracy theory that an arch villain by the name of Mr. Sender is out to steal the world's mail and the world's garbage. And
And
he
turn the frogs gay.
inadvertently, I'm sorry, what?
And turn the frogs gay.
Yeah. And he inadvertently stumbles into an actual military arms deal. An illegal arms deal. And it's very like Man Who Knew Too Little kind of thing. Although this actually I think precedes that film, because I think
believe
that
so.
was 97 and this was 96.
Okay.
But it very much it's that kind of vibe. A clueless wanderer stumbles into something he doesn't understand and never does, kind of thing, yet somehow gets the best of the bad guys. But that's basically the starting point for understanding the film. But you mentioned Tom Arnold, and here's the thing, just to kind of give a little bit of background where I came in to this movie. So I originally saw this when I was like young teens, maybe like 14 or something like that. I mean, what it came, yeah, 96. I would have been about 13, 14. it was one of those things. I think it was on like Showtime or basically a channel that I didn't typically get. But they were doing, my cable provider at the time was doing like a special where basically you could get some channels like HBO and Showtime and these movie channels for free for like a week. So while that was happening, I basically taped everything that looked somewhat interesting. And the main reason that I sought this out was because the only thing that I had seen Tom Arnold do was a little known sitcom that he did back in the early 90s called Tom. It I believe I know Andrew Lawrence was on that as his son. But it, like, I think it only lasted like 4 to 6 episodes, but I remember thinking that that was one of the funniest shows I'd ever seen. And so that's my opinion of Tom Arnold. And I see he's in a movie where he's, a comedy.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, sure, let's check this out. And like I said, it kind of became, a favorite of myself and my sister. We rewatched this movie countless times, but even then I was like, I think this is really funny, but I also recognize that it's very dumb.
Yep.
Here's the thing. A lot of it is supposed to be dumb. It is intentionally stupid humor.
Yes.
That's the name of the film is The Stupids. But there are certain things that, like I said, I think there was a bit where I just kept laughing. And then all of a sudden there was like a 10 to 15 minute period where I had nothing. And the jokes hadn't stopped.
Yeah.
But none of them were landing. And there are definitely, like, honestly, for me, after I'm trying to remember, does the music, oh, that's right, the TV station, I think the last thing that I have fun with in this film is the I'm My Own Grandpa song.
Is that
And
when
then
that's or
after
is that older than that? I don't know.
I think it's older than that. I
Yeah.
meant to look it up and I forgot to. I'm pretty sure it had already existed.
Okay.
But I think that's like really one of the last bits in the film. Like after that point in the movie, I literally just sit and watch it because the movie's not over.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
think
there are a couple things here and there where I'm like, like his interaction with Bob Keeshan, who was Captain Kangaroo, by the way. I feel like they probably really would have wanted to get like Mr. Rogers, because I think he would have maybe resonated with more people, but they got Captain Kangaroo instead. But their kind of conversation, because he's talking about like that Cinder has repented, and Bob Keeshan thinks he's just giving him directions to the highway. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in that last 15-20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and that's again, I guess that kind of brings one of my bigger criticisms with the film, that I'm not familiar with the source material, so maybe the source material,
right?
I'm willing to bet that the source material probably is like more closer to this than the film was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with this type of movie, you have a cast of 4 characters that are central to the plot.
Right.
You have all of them. They're the ones that drive the comedy. They're the ones that keep the ball rolling as far as that goes. I think you put yourself at major risk of pacing and comedic lapse issues when you try to keep that rolling to the point where you include the supporting cast into that fold. So I think from my interpretation, I think the subversive goal behind the point of I assume the source material, but also this film, is the idea of the subversiveness of the stupid people also being like the stupidity of the real world being pulled, the curtain of the stupidity being pulled away from the real
Right.
world by these people. So like the actions they do, the amount of stupidity that they exhibit is what reveals the secret stupidity of the people that are around them in the real world in society.
The quote unquote smart people.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, kind of like an Addams Family dynamic, like where the ghastliness
Sure.
is like kind of exemplified through like their interactions with the family, with the titular family itself. I think
Right.
that's kind of the goal. And so when you have like this like military leader bad guy and like his cohorts, they're doing like very goofy, slapsticky things as well. It kind of, I think, waters down a lot of the comedy that particular moment is relying on. Like when they're pulling
Yeah.
when they're pulling the binoculars like and choking the guy. I'm like this. I'm not. This is like really cringe.
It's not necessary, and that, like, honestly, I don't really pay attention to that other than noticing
Yeah.
that it's happening. It's
I,
not
I I think
funny.
that kind of thing lands better if you just have them written and directed to play the characters as straight as possible.
As straight as possible. I mean, honestly, I think this movie is best when everything is being treated as straight as possible, when
Yes.
everyone is fully committing to what is going on. I will say, with that same scene, one of the scenes I have the most problem with is what they're watching through the binoculars. They are watching Stanley Stupid act like a moron,
Yeah.
while at the same time calling him a genius. And I'm like, that really undermines our villains here.
Yeah. If nothing else, like when he's like wrestling with the tire through the binoculars, like I was thinking like you could have it be like they think he's like testing, like he's checking for like parts, or he's like demonstrating some kind of like
I was about to
physical
say, I mean,
karate
what they
prowess.
could have done.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and bring up something that I thought while watching this movie. There are parts of this that feel like the script for an Ernest film.
Yeah, I got some
And
very
I honestly think that had Jim Varney been in this movie, either as the character of Ernest or even just playing Stanley Stupid, it
Mhm.
might have actually read better. Because here's the thing. I think that Tom Arnold does a fine job
Yeah.
in this, but something that really hit me is, number one, I was thinking about the film and also rewatching it. You know, Tom Arnold was never an actor. He was a comedian that during the 80s got, you know, basically pulled into doing, you know, film and television
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
That's what he's always been. And there's a certain bit of him that works for this, because he has that kind of like you know, like that weird kind of face and that weird kind of like stupid just natural grin.
Yeah.
But then there's also
Like a Jim
occasions,
Varney.
right, but Jim Varney knows when to use that. Tom
Yes.
Arnold just does it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't always, it's not always in the right time, or like there are times when Tom Arnold literally somehow it's almost like he's not committed to the moment.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit when the garbage truck pulls up, and they keep going back and forth between his reactions and the truck being there, and there's literally a bit where he's just kind of like staring forward and he's making this weird face, and I'm like, does he know he's on camera right now? Because he just looks like he needs to take a shit.
They hadn't
Is
said
what it looks.
action yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just looks like, and there's also a bit, I wrote it down, but there is a bit when I think it's maybe around, oh, it's when they're in the television studio and they're waiting for the elevator, and all of a sudden they come out of the elevator and they play the music, and for a second it looks like both Tom and the son hear the music, but I didn't actually pay attention to see if Bug Hall sells it, but Tom starts to sell it and then stops, because he literally is like, and then it's almost like he went to sell it and somebody told him not to, or he was trying to pull back. Like
like
either
he
way,
thought he
I don't
fucked
know
up,
if
and
they
then he
just used a
decided to like
bad.
wait for them to say cut, and
It,
they never said cut.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know if they just used a bad take or what it is, but like it just really, and like that is just kind of exemplary of kind of his whole thing. And it, again, I don't necessarily think that he's necessarily getting in his head. I just think it's the fact that he's not an actor. Therefore, he's not really trying to sell something. The bit to me that I think suffers the most, and I still think it's one of the funniest bits in the whole film, is the whole man bush sequence, which, by the way, that's a really dirty term.
That's one of the quotes that I wrote down. I almost texted you.
But yeah, but that whole bit, could you imagine if somebody like Jim Varney, I mean, number one, if Jim Varney did it, half of it would be in that weird voice that he does when he's, being
Sexy
dramatic.
audiobook voice.
Could you imagine if somebody, if a comedic actor was committed to that bit, how funny it would be? Because just what Tom Arnold is saying is funny, and he gives enough to it that it is funny. But just because he's like, wait a second, I have arms. I am the first Bush in history with arms.
Yeah, how candid it was.
And legs. I can walk. But instead, he's just saying, I'm the first Bush in history with arms and legs. I can walk. And like, you could argue that part of the underselling it could be funny, but if he had just gone for it, because here's the thing. I actually really appreciate Jessica Lundy in this film.
I appreciate the
because
whole.
She is committed.
I think the kids were as well. I like.
I think so too. But kids are kids.
Well,
they're kind of in their own. No, you're right. They're not like, I've definitely seen some kid performances that I don't buy. But, and for me, honestly, I think that they are doing good. I don't think that they're doing exceptional.
Well, I guess I more so mean to say that, like, by good, I mean I think with all four of them, Tom Arnold being the less of the four, but I think with all four of them, I think what I appreciated about the performances was that, like, it didn't feel pulled back. Like Buck Hall, like all the delivery was like way over the top.
No, that's true. I do believe that they are all committed. I specifically want to mention Jessica Lundy because she does, like, there is something in her performance, and she's not an actor whose name but you've seen her in a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And she's just totally committed. She's not holding back. She's not worried about looking stupid. She is just fully committing, and there are little things that she does that are completely unnecessary, but when I see them, they make me die. Like, okay, so the bit where she decides that she needs to disguise herself because the police are around, and she buries herself in all of those wigs, right?
Yeah.
And she, number one, she's just like, good day, officer. Like, it really matters because there are a couple of meter maids.
Yeah.
But rushes past them, and then if you notice, like, she pushes into the revolving door, and if you keep watching, she all of a sudden crouch down and pushes her face up against the glass as if she's like still trying to remain like hidden, but she's like wearing the most conspicuous outfit in the world. And so it's hilarious.
I also love that she's made clothes out of wigs, but like the wig she's wearing is like comically, like over comically huge.
Oh yeah, well, and the one she's wearing on her head is this giant monstrosity.
Exactly. It's like it's
a pink version of the Peg Bundy wig.
I was gonna say it reminded me of like Tracy Turnblad from Hairspray, like that kind of
it's that same style. It's that same style.
Yeah. I liked like when she reveals to the kids, like when she like pulls the wig off of her like shoulder, and she's like, I'm wearing I'm disguised.
It's a disguise.
Yeah.
They're wigs. Yeah. My favorite bit in that whole bit is when she comes up and she's like, kids, and they start screaming. She goes, no, it's me. And they're like, it's some kind of ape woman. And she goes, no, it's me, your mother. Your mother's some kind of ape woman? I don't know why, but that makes me laugh every single time.
So that shit was funny.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like where I like the kids on that one too is, and this also just maybe like comparing off of like a lot of child actors from like similar films at the time. When you get child actors that can similar, I guess I'll use the gold standard for like this time period to like the Addams Family, like we're like those child actors, Christina Ricci and whoever the fuck played Pugsley.
Let's be honest, the one we really remember is Wednesday.
Which I mean and they understood the material clearly. They understood the assignment. Now whether or not they like gave like they nailed the part completely is meh, but like I feel like it'd be so easy to get child actors who, despite the best direction, just would give you like an undersold level of energy. I got the level of energy that I think that part, like whenever like they had some kind of misunderstanding or false translation of some event in the story that kind of what ran towards a joke, they committed in a way that made me believe that what they were saying. I
will definitely give you that. They were committed. There was it didn't feel like there was a like the performance was out of balance between especially Jessica Lundy and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Tom is doing his own thing, but it didn't feel lopsided between mom and the kids.
Yeah. And and again, a lot of that comes down to like their natural, like not natural, but their facial expressions. Like Bug Hall, obviously with this gigantic eyes, but and I think the scene that comes to mind for me is like when he like wants to become like this monolithic like precursor to history with like writing his name on the wall in that stupid scene. Which again, it's a dumb scene, but
I was about to say I don't like the scene, but I do like his performance in the scene.
But like, I appreciated not as much that scene, but like what came after it, like when he apologized in the next scene for becoming like a megalomaniac for like a hot second.
Yeah.
Like when he addresses that, I'm like, all right, that's, you know what, it was kind of like weird and forced, but like the fact that you addressed it like in an offhanded comment, the next scene was kind of fun. I like that.
Right.
Well, do we want to talk about Christopher Lee?
Oh, we have to talk about Christopher Lee.
Because I was playing a game.
First of all, I do want to go ahead and just mention that there are a ton of, and I don't know what, there's a ton of cameos in this, but did you notice the majority of them are all filmmakers? And I'm like, why is David Cronenberg randomly in this film? Why is Norman Jewison randomly in this film? You know,
you can tell by their performances. You can tell by all their performances. Like, that's our actor.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think David Cronenberg probably sells it the best. He's not asked to do much, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some that it's just like, okay, why? Was it necessary for you to be in this movie? But
Landis was probably like, hey, like a lot of my
it had to be Landis just getting his friends. Because I mean, honestly, the majority of these people I don't know by name, but every time I clicked on their little link, it said filmmaker, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he's just using his friends. Like Costa Gavras is the gas station attendant, which I do love his scene because that's the joke. You know, there's a hole in your gas tank. Actually, that's how you get the gas in.
I was hoping they'd pay that off though with like the whole like Lloyd and the gum thing. I was kind of like, or did they not? I don't.
But I mean, that happened beforehand, so yeah.
Well, yeah, but like, I was hoping that would like come back as like someone put gum on the car. You know what I mean?
That car was gone by that point.
Well, yeah, I was like wondering if like that was the reason they put the gum there, though. That's like I was kind of hoping that would be like a setup payoff.
Yeah. They're not that smart. Okay, so
there are moments. Yeah, there are moments like they like had that degree.
Sure. But getting back to Christopher Lee, I mean,
well, I was playing a game with this movie going in because you told me that he was in it, and I was already sold.
Yeah.
And when I saw his name pop up in the credits, excited again, and the entire time I'm thinking like, all right, who is he gonna be?
Where is he? Where is
Because
he? Yeah.
I think the first time I was like wondering, it's like, all right, is he gonna be like the big head of like this government cover up? Okay, no, he wasn't. Then they mentioned like,
Right.
okay, we're gonna send off this like military like expert assassin. I'm thinking, okay, well, he was an assassin in like the war, so like, who better
Sure.
to do that? Christopher Lee? No, because you can't have Christopher Lee playing an assassin going out like that. It wouldn't happen.
I was about to say, no, that would be throwing away Christopher Lee.
I when it finally got to him, and we'll cover like who he is, but like I don't know. You may disagree with me on this one. I was a little. I loved what they did with him, but I was also
Yeah.
kind of sad they didn't have him double as the nice alternative of the real life person.
I mean, I will say I get that, but I also really like the juxtaposition of casting a well-known children's host
Sure.
as
Yeah.
your supposed dark leader
Yeah.
of this
He's
conspiracy
like the nicest
theory
person
that they
they're
have.
going after. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it would have been fun to see more of Christopher Lee.
Play like a sweet
but yeah,
old man.
Yeah. But yeah, he plays basically
Lucifer.
he plays Stanley's head version of Mr. Sender, which that whole thing comes from he used to work at the post office, and he basically kept
He was a
seeing
courier for the government.
Yes, exactly. He was a courier for the U.S. government, and he kept seeing all these letters marked "Return to Sender," and was certain that it was part of a diabolical plot to steal people's mail.
Return the Frog's gay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess they just got Christopher Lee for a day, and they gave him like these crazy long fingernails. And they just like had him like just.
They just said have fun.
Yeah, and he did.
And he did.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think, I mean, there are so many bits that I think are hilarious in this movie, but if I had to just pick one bit that I think is just the problem is it doesn't make sense if you just show, because you just think that he's just a really arch villain with the worst plot in the world. But I do like the fact that we kind of see this in Stanley Stupid's head about him kind of contriving or conceiving of this plot and then putting all of the wheels in place of the various things that they've encountered throughout the movie. The police being on his side and all this kind of stuff, which is all the result of various gags. And apparently the Chinese restaurant is on their side, which, okay, I've just mentioned two things that I do want to bring up. First of all, the whole reason that they think that the police are against them is because the kids go looking for their dad. Not once in the morning do they go looking for mom. They go looking for dad. They don't know where he is. So they go to the police to find him, and they write a note, and it's, she dictates this whole note, and Buster Bughall's character just writes the last word of every sentence she says, and it just happens to spell out "police kidnapped your children."
Yeah. Something that I had questioned about. I guess is ultimately a plot hole, but like he goes after this garbage truck in the beginning to try to get it. But
Yeah.
I guess their house is the only house that the garbage truck actually stopped at to get the garbage.
Well, and it stopped apparently 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
What garbage truck is going out 2 days in a row?
Yeah.
That's just not. Yeah.
It's yeah. I'm just like I get it. Like the joke is like he's like trying to catch up to it in roller skates, but it's like if the garbage truck is theoretically doing like what it's doing, it should be stopping at house to house. Honestly, like the real cover up is like, why isn't this garbage truck going where it's supposed to go, doing its job?
Yeah. Well, and also like, they do that whole gag where he's like 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 8 wheels, and that's why he grabs the roller skates.
Which is fine.
But then at no point does the truck go faster than he can keep up on roller skates.
I was say he's very fast, except when the camera cuts away.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean, 100% that wasn't Tom Arnold.
Well, no,
Because they
absolutely not.
only show him on roller skates from the back.
Well, yeah. I mean, like,
yeah.
but let's be honest. Like, I don't think like the legendary Soul Skater Brink could keep up with a garbage truck going at like full like speed limit speed. But
No, it's true.
I think I did want to give him props because there was like one line of his that like really did make me laugh, and this is like one of the things that I imagine you and your sister quoted watching this movie. And correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but it's the drive B quote.
The drive B.
That's his delivery on that one. Like genuinely worked for me. I had to go back because like
what is it?
It wasn't even so much that like it was in the moment. It almost seemed like he was like it's almost like when you have like the person look at the camera and break the fourth wall and say, "Oh my!" He's like, "Oh come on, B, get out of here! I'm trying to drive." Oh my
the
god,
darn B! Can't you tell him?
B.
Yeah, can't you tell him Tom trying to drive? No, okay. I will tell you the line that I quote from that sequence.
Yeah.
Okay, it is honestly still my favorite line from this whole movie. So he's fallen into this, unbeknownst to him, these illegal arms dealers, and they're trying to kill him. He doesn't know because he's Stanley stupid. His family went to a newspaper to try to find information out about him, got stuck something in the drive, got the fatal error drive B message or whatever. I will say I do find the delivery of that line funny. Up to that point, I didn't care about any of that stuff. But he then, so at this point, they have set an explosive on his car because they've tried to kill him like several times and they've not succeeded. So they've put an explosive on his car. It's got a 1-minute timer. He just so happens to seize the drive B. He's convinced that that's what's going to kill him. So he pulls over and starts fighting the B. And just as the timer's about to go off, the bee lands on the bumper. He takes off his shoe and goes, "Now the hunter has become the hunted," or whatever. Goes, and the moment that he hits the bumper, the car explodes.
The smoking lady?
Yeah. Huh?
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking of another time
So,
where the car explodes.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fun.
Movie. We should address that real quick in this movie. They kill a lot of people in this movie, and it's weird that most of them are by like burning. Like they burn a lot of people.
But it's cartoonish. They don't really kill them.
There's a couple. What about the assassins that's like trying to get him? Like
I'm talking. I mean, I thought you were specifically talking about that lady. I don't think she died. I think she just cartoon cat exploded.
I mean,
but anyway,
like,
getting back
by
to
burning in this. But yeah.
But okay, so they think that he's blown up in the car. Cut back, and the only thing that is still intact is the front of the car where he is. He glances at the shoe and goes, "Now that's a well-made shoe."
Yeah, that was funny. That got me.
I don't know, that line is hilarious to me. Yeah. I think that is my favorite bit in the whole movie.
Yeah. It's a kind of like bizarre comedy sort of like twist. Like you don't get a whole lot of in this compared to everything else.
Exactly. But let's see. I kind of just want to go down and talk about some of my favorite bits and jokes. Let's see. There's a little bit at the beginning. I didn't get a laugh out of me, but just kind of like okay, that's kind of funny. We see Mrs. Stupid drinking tea and dipping her tea bag in it, and then we see Mr. Stupid basically with the coffee pot and the bag of coffee in it, like it's being steeped like tea. Yeah. Let's see.
I liked the bus said, or it was either the bus or the garbage truck said, "See you next Wednesday." I'm like, you were so close to being great.
Let's see. Oh, I liked the use of the theremin and the music during when the garbage truck is pulling up.
Oh yeah.
Because like I said, they really kind of lean into Stanley's perspective with the music. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay. this is one of my favorite Jessica Lundy bits when she is first going to the police because she thinks that they've kidnapped the kids.
Yeah.
And she, you know, just 100% selling it, is grabbing and talking into what we believe is a tape recorder, and is just like, the cops have stolen my children. What am I going to do? You know, she's just kind of leaving memos for herself, and then she puts it down. And then all of a sudden she picks it back up and she goes, note to self, I must remember to actually get a tape recorder so that I will no longer be talking into the garage door opener. And then we cut to a scene of the garage door opening and closing.
and ruining the graffiti of like, was that like a West Side Story reference?
I don't know. I will say, though, you know who that kid was?
Tell me.
Is Max Landis, John Landis's son.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, that was one of the bits that I'm like, that wasn't necessary, because the joke with that is not fun. Honestly, all I needed was to see the garage door opening and closing.
Yeah,
I didn't need paint spilling.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I was similar to like the gum thing on the car. I was like expecting that to be some kind of payoff. Like the kids would like then go after the family or something.
Right.
It's the Jets. They're after us, you know, but like, no, it's,
Yeah, but that's one of those joke on a jokes, and I'm like, the garage door opening and closing is all we needed there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But let's see. I already talked about the man bush thing. I really do think that bit, if it had just been given a little bit more, would have. Yeah. I still think it's hilarious, but I think that given a little bit more would have been even funnier. Oh, okay.
I think it would work if it came out now too.
I'm sorry.
I think that joke would like landed more with the modern audience just because of Man Bush.
Yeah. But okay, so there's the bit where the kids, the entire family basically thinks that everything around them means something. So the kids have come back from the police, and they're trying to find mom now. And they're like, we don't know where to start. And all of a sudden, a Chinese takeout menu is put on the door. And so they think it's gotta be a clue. So they go to the Chinese restaurant. By the way, who the hell pays for that meal? Because they just walk off.
Well,
they just dine and dash.
The whole service in that restaurant is weird, because not only do they just like dine and dash, but they also have like,
well, they bring them out food and then take it all away.
Exactly, before they're even like touched it. Apparently, like it's like, guys,
they're just throwing it around.
Yeah,
but okay, so there's a bit, they give them the menu, they sit down and they're like, so what do you want to order? And they're like, oh, you know what we want. And he goes, may I recommend the cashew chicken? Yeah. It's the dumbest joke, but it's like, we'll give you the cash when we get our dad back. Yeah, and don't call us chicken.
And like that was like a moment where I was like impressed with the child actors. Like they were just very sincere.
They sold that so well. But yeah, that's honestly probably my favorite joke of theirs. That between that and the ape woman bit, I think is really funny.
Yeah, no, I like that quite a bit.
But yeah, let's see. Oh, okay. Not a whole lot comes from it, but I kind of like the whole Floyd's Deli bit.
Yeah, I feel like that would be so blown a barn.
I'm sorry.
I feel like that character would be
absolutely
blown a barn.
Absolutely, it would be because I mean, either him or Frankie Faison is Lloyd.
Yeah.
Because he's just great, which, I mean, we have to talk about that bit because it is one of my favorite bits in the movie where they go to try to find Sender. They found a random Sender in the phone book, and he works at a children's museum.
Yeah.
And they basically, Stanley and his daughter, Petunia, walk into a planetarium. And I will say, I think this is another one of those bits that was either messed up and they just used a bad take or something. But Stanley says one false move and everything could be over or something like that. And then the lights go off and then Stanley takes a step. I'm like, I feel like he was meant to take a step and then the lights go off, but he missed the cue or something. But it's one of those weird kind of things. I'm just like, I don't know why we use that take, but okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just because he said the line the best that time.
Nah, I would guess that probably was just a fuck up. They probably just could have done better execution wise.
But they hear a voice, basically being like, is someone there? And they're like, they assume it's got to be God. So they come down and they're like, hail to thee, O Lord. And it's the janitor. And he's like, actually, it's pronounced Lloyd. And his name tag says Lloyd. And then it's the bit, all these years we've been saying it wrong. And so, just a funny little gag. And, they actually have a fun little conversation with him. I love the interactions that they have with people where they think one thing and the other person has a completely different perspective and nobody sets them straight. There's no reason to say anything about it. It's just one person is having a delusion, the other person is in reality, and those two are never going to cross.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. I think that was about it as far as my favorite bits. Are there any bits that struck you that I didn't mention?
No, I think you got a lot of them. And like I said, some of the little ones that I mentioned, like the bus quote that was probably not a joke, but I took it as one. And yeah, like I said, the drive B was probably, like, again, maybe not by Tom Arnold's intention, but it did probably make me laugh the most, just because, again, like, how it's because he didn't do a very good job of like overplaying the comedy delivery of it, or even he realized like this is a very dumb contrived line and I'm going to like say it like I kind of am like as Tom Arnold.
Yeah,
it's a drive B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are probably my biggest two.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm trying to remember how we did this last time. I think you just asked me, and I'm going to ask you. Sure. Did you enjoy watching this film? And do you think that it is one that, I mean, I know last time you asked if you would have wished you'd seen it earlier. I mean, I don't know, maybe as a kid you would have enjoyed this even more, but what do you think about it? And, what would you say? Would you ever suggest someone watch this, or, what would be the circumstances around that, I guess?
So yeah, I'm glad I watched it ultimately. Like, I didn't dislike the movie as a whole. Like, again, it just kind of felt like I was saying earlier, like a product of like that era of the 90s where we were kind of, adapting, some older material for like, again, from like comics or newspapers or books, or like, again, like very old TV shows into like, modern sort of comedic storylines for like modern audiences at the time. Which especially made me laugh because when they brought up like this is like another stereotype of like those types of movies where the internet was a thing, and you have that like one brief scene, but it always sticks out to you, like when a character explains what the internet is to the other one, and there's like one character who knows a lot about the internet. Even Jurassic Park has this type of character where it's like, it's one of those 90s movies, and I
like it because it plays it up like really was the case. This person has no idea what they're talking about.
It's a combination of that. For me, it's the writer, like, that one doesn't know what the internet actually is, and two expects the audience not to know what the internet actually is, and so they take a lot of it. And honestly, like, it's scary to say, but like, save this for the time capsule. I guarantee you AI movies are going to be the exact same way in like 10, 20, 30 years from now. It's going to be the same equivalent. And I'm not saying that AI is like a good or bad thing. I'm not here to jump on that argument, but I think that the way we're seeing like AI start, like the idea of that being a threat, or like how it is in society being implemented into movies now, is exactly going to be the exact same sort of paradigm when it comes to, like, again, decades from now. But anyway, So yeah, it's dated, but again, I do appreciate it. I do appreciate like a lot of what it does in terms of like its setup and payoffs with its comedy. It's not
Right.
just like those types of comedies where it's just we're gonna just go do joke after joke and nothing's gonna connect. It does. The jokes not only serve as jokes with setup and payoff, but they also do drive the plot forward. Which again, while the jokes aren't always consistent or strong across the board, it does consistently fulfill that purpose with a few exceptions like the aliens. So I do appreciate that.
Right.
Um, I'm glad. I do wish I had seen it as like a younger, a younger lad. Maybe even as a kid, I probably like would have loved. When I was very little, like elementary school, I wasn't allowed to say the word stupid in the household, and so
Oh,
this
sure.
movie would have been like
Wow.
forbidden fruit to me. So I probably
They literally call somebody stupid every other line.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
title. I'm like, hey mom, can I watch the STUPIDS? So
Wow.
so I did appreciate, like I said, I probably would have liked this more as a kid if I'd seen it then, appreciated a lot more. But then again, similar to you and your family, like
Right.
have quoted a lot more lines of it,
Yeah.
outside of that. But again, I'm ultimately glad that I watched it. Would I recommend it? I think it would depend on the reason I'm recommending it. Like I said, if I want to give someone like a good
Right.
example of a setup payoff type of comedy movie with a constant running joke like what this movie tries to do, I think this would be
Sure.
not necessarily the gold standard, not like the number one example I would give. Like I think I would maybe defer them to like Edgar Wright or somebody, like their movies for that
Sure.
sort of thing. But for
Yeah.
this movie, for what it is, I think it does a fine enough job. And yeah, if someone was looking for that sort of '90s like nostalgic sort of look with that sort of design to it, sure, yeah, I'd push this one at them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one or two times I have suggested it was simply because I quoted it and they were like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "You have to watch the Stupids."
Yeah, yeah,
I will say, I think that I would not ever call this like an underrated comedy classic. I
mhm,
do think that it is a little underrated simply because I think it has more to offer than um, it's ever been given credit for. I mean,
yeah,
it was nominated for the Razzies, for crying out loud, which of course the Razzies always do that with films that don't deserve it.
yeah,
Um, and like we said, it's not 100% successful, but I also think that there are successes in it.
mhm,
Um, and so, if you want to get uh some inside jokes going with your friends, I think it's a good one to watch. But other than that, just remember the jokes that you like and repeat those.
yeah, yeah. That's so. I think overall the movie is what it is, and
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents on that.
All right. Well, then I want to go ahead and let everybody know how you can get in contact with us. You can contact us on Twitter and Instagram at the Flying Cow Pod. You can also email at the Flying Cow Pod at gmail.com. Make sure to let us know what you're thinking about the podcast, and if you have any suggestions for us. Jack, anything you want people to know about?
Honestly, I'm thinking at this point for like plugging our socials or something. I know that you said you needed to catch up on it a little bit, but like I've been doing a lot more of my flick chart stuff to try to kind of
Okay.
catalog a lot of what I've seen. And
Sure.
once I get it to a point where I feel like most, if not all, of my viewings have been pretty much put on there, I think I might start
Right.
plugging that on here because Hannah's my only friend on flick chart.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I will say my biggest problem with Flickchart is the comparisons, because to me, I think my favorite movie changes daily based
yeah, I'm
on
with
what
you.
I've seen or what I'm thinking about, and to have like a fixed thing saying this is always your favorite movie, and I'm like, but it's really not right now.
Well, I mean, and I feel the same way. Like that's why, like, if I ever see my top 10 or whatever it may be, just on the side of the screen, and I'll say, just
Yeah.
I need to re-rank this movie because this definitely isn't what it is anymore. But honestly, my
Right.
goal with it more is to catalog movies that I have forgotten about because it will just pop up shit that I have
Sure.
seen The Indian in the cupboard. Sure, let's put that on there.
Yeah, I mean, see, if I could just like make a list of all of the movies that I've seen and not have to, I mean, say if I like them or if I don't, but not really have to do anything other than that, that's what I prefer.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was on what is it?
Letterbox.
Letterboxd. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like you have to
But
like
see,
do,
again, there's a star rating,
yeah, that and you
which,
have, I just feel like there's more work put into that. Like we have to like review the
yeah,
movie. It's there's. But I'm
yeah,
trying to develop my flip chart just again, not necessarily to kind of gauge my rankings, but more so to just catalog as much of what I've seen as possible. So
right.
hopefully, like once I get that more polished up, I can just put that out there and people can
Yeah.
make fun of me for having Inglorious Bastards in my top 10, just despite the fact that it's just based on who it gets paired up against.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think right now my top 10 is very like well-known films, and I'm like, I know there are some lesser known things that I like that it just
yeah,
aren't up there yet because I haven't ranked them or this, that, or the other. I mean, for the longest time, honestly, the only number one that I really didn't have a problem being the number one was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
okay,
I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know that I'd always say that's my number one, but it's hard to argue that it's a movie that isn't really important to
I
me.
think that's Zip's
And then
favorite movie.
somehow that got replaced by One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I like, but
Yeah.
I would definitely not say it's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it just comes down to what you pair it off against. And honestly, like my number one,
Yeah.
while I think I would probably put in my top 10 films, like I don't know if I just can't call it number one. But that being said, I'm not going to say what it is because it might be something I suggest for this podcast, but
Yeah.
not today. But I will suggest it at some point, which I guess is a good segue into what we're watching next.
Yes, because it is your turn, sir,
Yeah.
to pick something for me. The first time you picked a classic,
Yeah.
and then I threw something at you that is not. So
You threw me a stupid comedy,
curious.
objectively speaking.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I'm
Yeah,
curious what you've got for me.
and that's the problem. I'm my goal with this, and for all listening, I'm going to try. I have a whole list of suggestions for
Mhm.
movies to come, but I'm going to
Yeah.
try to kind of keep it very, some variance here.
Yeah.
So with that being said, for my next pick, we're going to go with The Hunt.
Okay, is that the
Mads Mikkelsen.
the Betty Gilpin from a few years ago?
This is a 09
Oh,
Danish
okay.
film starring
Okay.
Mads
So
Mikkelsen.
different The Hunt. Okay.
Yeah. And I would
Okay.
strongly suggest to go in as blind as possible with this one because the themes are kind of reliant on being subverted by what they actually are, if that makes sense.
Okay, you said it's Mads Mikkelsen. Okay,
Yeah.
I am seeing that one pop up.
But I would strongly recommend going in as blind as possible to this movie before you
Okay.
watch it.
Honestly, I try to do that with as many films as I can. I did that with The Invitation, knowing nothing about that film, and in my opinion, that was the best way to watch it.
This was one of those. This is one of those that I would pretty much recommend to everybody, just for all kinds of reasons. But again, I can't say them because of what it's about.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, that it makes it really hard to suggest a movie that way, unless you're doing something like we're doing, or like I was doing with The Invitation, where it was my film challenge. So didn't matter if, selling me on the movie, I was going to watch it.
Yeah. I think you'll like this one. I think this one's pretty well regarded. I would say similar to Come and See. I would just make sure you maybe have a bottle of something just on standby because it does have some.
Dude, I live in a dry county with my mother, so yeah, not exactly something that I can easily do.
Should I edit that out then and pick a different movie? Because you're probably going to want something.
No. It's I do still have stuff.
Fair. Cool. You might want to have it on standby. But this is one of the best movies made in the past couple of decades. And
wow. Okay.
If it's one you haven't seen, which it sounds like, then I would. Yeah, that's my next pick.
Definitely have not. All right. Sounds good. I will say I keep getting I'm getting mixed things. Half of them are for The Hunt and half of them are for the Seventh Hunt, which apparently came out the same year. But
Let's see. Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is The
I
Hunt
I know what
from-
I'm
oh,
looking for, so
sorry,
it's
I
fine.
lied. This is The Hunt 2012, directed by Thomas Vinterberg.
Oh, okay, that might
Which,
be why.
if you've seen Another Round, same director, same writer.
Okay. Okay. Um Okay. Yeah. Yeah, more of it's popping up this time. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I will definitely watch that for next time. But until that time, moo.
Blink.
Moo.